Hello! Today we shall be reviewing / talking about Spider-Man 1, the Sam Raimi one, starring Tobey Maguire and Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin and Peter Parker with their roles respectively. I released a video earlier about last week saying that I'm going to be reviewing every single Marvel movie that I've ever seen. I'm not going to be going in, unless it's the MCU, I'm not going to be going in chronological order. I'm going to be just going to what I actually saw first. And this Spider-Man movie was the first movie to ever actually truly introduce me into the Marvel Universe. So I thought there was no better way to start this binge was with Spider-Man 1. So without further ado, shall we begin? There it is. So Spider-Man 1, directed by Sam Raimi. This was the first movie, this is the first Marvel movie I actually ever saw, and it's actually one of the first movies I ever saw in theaters. But this is my introduction to Spider-Man, and in my personal opinion, it's still probably one of the best renditions of Spider-Man. Just to put a forewarning out there, we'll be talking about spoilers just whenever, because I feel like everybody has seen this movie, and if not, you're personally don't really care about spoilers. That's just how I feel about it, but I will be talking about spoilers, just a forewarning. So now that we got that out of the way, let's actually talk about the movie. It's a classic origin story. Peter Parker, he's like a geek and all that, and then they go on a field trip, and then he gets bit by a radioactive spider because they went to Oscorp Labs, and then his best friend is actually the son of a genius billionaire, but he's also a psycho too, and that is Norman Osborn and Harry Osborn. The things I feel like this movie gets right completely is definitely 100% Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. He does an amazing job in this. Like, I heard there's rumors that they're going to be bringing back Tobey Maguire into Spider-Man No Way Home. Please bring Willem Dafoe back. I feel like that would be awesome. I know he does technically die at the end of this movie, but I would still absolutely love to see him back, because they're bringing back Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, and they he technically died in the second one, but that's just, they always find loopholes. That's how comic book stories are. But anyway, he gets bit by the spider, he starts feeling weird and all that, and then he starts getting powers, and then he has glasses, and then he takes them off, and then he's like, I don't need them anymore. The theme in this is awesome. I believe it's Danny Elfman. Let me do a quick check. Yep, music by Danny Elfman, so you can't go wrong. Kristen Dunst plays Mary Jane in this one. I have absolutely no problem with her. I think she does, it's a great love interest for the first movie. It's not too much. It's not, it's not shadowed upon, but it's not too much either. And then, one of the best parts is when Willem Dafoe, he pretty much gets, told by the general, is if you don't fix this, well, I'm pulling the plug on you, Norman. And then he's 30 years of evolution, he's a billion years of evolution in the bottle, and something like that. Then he chugs it, and then he gets into the, the strapping thing to turn him into the Goblin. And one part was, when it goes, he's like, oh, that's cold. And now I'm always wondering, was that always, planned, or was that just Willem Dafoe, actually reacting to that cold bar on him? But then they put him into the chamber, and then they gas him and all that, and then he's freaking out, it looks like he was actually dying, and then the guy runs in there and tries to save him, and then he grabs him, and he's like, back to formula, and then he throws him through, and then he just jumps up, and he's like, ah, and then he jumps out, oh my god, this is just pure, it's as much as a Spider-Man comic as you can go, especially for the time that this came out. It was just so much fun. Aunt May is in this too, and then that one famous scene when he finally becomes a goblin, he's like, our Father who art in heaven, and then he comes flying in, and he's like, finish it! Finish it! And he just has a great time, and I feel like nobody can actually outdo Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin, in my personal opinion. I think that he just did a great job, and he completely defined the role, and you could tell he was just having one hell of a time playing Norman Osborn. It's just such a great role. And then James Franco does a really good job as Harry Osborn too. I really enjoyed him as Harry Osborn throughout the entire trilogy. I feel like he actually had a pretty good arc in the third one for what we actually got from the third one, and it was about decent. It was about the best they could do, and we do know that he dies at the end of the trilogy, but I feel like his story had a full arc. Third one has some good qualities. It's just not a great one, but we'll be talking about that once we actually get to it. We're actually talking about this. So pretty much Norman gets fired from his own company, the board, and then the guy's like, with his tease, like, you're out, Norman. Goodbye. And then there's that one famous scene when they have, like, the Macy's Day Parade, because it does take place around Thanksgiving. Technically, you could say this is a Thanksgiving movie, but that one scene when he comes flying down with the pumpkin bomb, and he's like, out am I? And then he throws it, and then just, like, they fade away. It's just, like, this movie is just so great. I absolutely love this movie. It's just so good. And then, like, he has a little fight with Spider-Man and all that, and then there's that one extra in the background when they land, he's like, it's just so funny. And then, like, they're fighting and all that, and then he goes flying off, and he's like, we'll meet again, Spider-Man! And then, like, they have their little meeting on the roof eventually, and then he was like, no matter what you do, eventually, they will hate you. It's just, it's so much fun. Everything about this is just, it's so well done. Tobey Maguire is probably he's my favorite Spider-Man, followed by Tom Holland, then Andrew Garfield, but I do not hate Andrew Garfield whatsoever. I actually think he's a pretty decent Spider-Man. He just happens to be at the bottom compared to, like, what we got. But anyway, like, Tobey Maguire, you can't go wrong with it, even though he does not look like a teenager in this, but, like, it's comic book logic. You swipe right past it. So pretty much, like, Norman gets Mary Jane for the big final battle. He gets Mary Jane, and then he gets a subway because it takes place in New York. And then he was like, we are who we are. Choose, Peter. And then he goes like that, and then they go flying down, and then he has to choose, and then that's that famous music, and then he drops down like that, and then he ends up saving both of them, and then the New Yorkers start throwing stuff at the Goblin. He's like, and then he flies away, and then the big battle, like, eventually leads into, like, this abandoned, like, thing. Oh yeah, I left out an entire part of this too. Like, one of the best parts about it is when now, this is gonna sound weird, but I don't think this movie had the best Uncle Ben death. Like, it's shocking how they do it, but, like, if you want true, like, emotional and, like, music just, like, is great, I would actually say Amazing Spider-Man 1 handled Uncle Ben's death the best. Now, Uncle Ben dies in almost every incarnation of Spider-Man besides Tom Holland ones, but what is different about this one, this actually ties back to the third one, which we'll actually talk about once we get to it, but one big thing in it is when he, like, tried to make money wrestling and all that, and then the guy, Bonesaw, is like, what are you doing up there? And then he's like, staying away from you. And then he's like, ah! And then they have their big wrestling match, and then he's like, but the ad said 500 or something like that. And he's like, you get 200 and you get what you get. Now get out. And then he's like, but the ad said 500. And then he's like, that's not my problem. And then, like, the guy, he gets robbed, and then he goes running out. And then he's like, hey, you could have stopped him. And then he's like, not my problem. And then that was pretty much what I wanted to talk about. And then he ends up, Peter ends up hunting down the guy that did it while listening to the police radio and all that. And then he pretty much he confronts him, and then he's like, what about my uncle? Did he give him a chance? Huh? Did he give him a chance? Then he pushes him, and then this guy actually trips over, like, a pipe, like an exposed pipe. Then he actually just falls to his death, and it looks like he actually killed him, but in reality, he just kind of, like, nudged him there, but he did not actually kill him. I don't think, like, personally, I don't think he actually killed him. But anyway, he ends up falling to his death, and then that's the main thing I wanted to talk about, because I was like, I can't leave that out. And one other thing I can't leave out, J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. Just perfect. Just absolutely perfect casting. It was so perfect that they had to bring him back for the Spider-Man Far From Home, because, like, you can't have anybody else play J. Jonah Jameson. It's just that much of an iconic character, and he actually he plays him perfect. Nobody else can play him. He is one of those, like, irreplaceable characters, like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. Like, he cannot be replaced, and that's personally how I feel about J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. But anyway, stretching all the way back to what we were talking about, Green Goblin and Spider-Man have their big fight inside the abandoned factory and all that. And then, like, he beats the shit out of Norman, and then, like, Norman is just, like, with the glider coming up slowly, but Peter can't see it, and he's like, Peter, please don't do it. It was the Goblin. The Goblin did it to me. Please, Peter, please. And then he was like, Godspeed, Spider-Man. And then it comes flying out, and then, like, Spider-Man actually flips over, and then he's like, uh-oh. And then he's like, don't tell Harry. Then he dies, and that ends up leading into the sequel, and then he pretty much, like, the sad funeral scene, and then he has to tell Mary Jane, he's like, no, I can't be with you, goodbye. But it's such a fun movie, and, it's really, really enjoyable. It's probably one of the best, like, non-MCU Marvel films out there, and I would even argue this is better than some of the MCU films, too, especially, I'd say it's better than Captain Marvel, and, I have to think about some other ones, too. But anyway, I definitely say it's better than Captain Marvel and maybe The Incredible Hulk. And it's probably better than the first Spider-Man Homecoming. But that's just my personal opinion. But anyway, that was my review of Spider-Man. The first Spider-Man of the Sam Raimi trilogy that should have gotten a fourth one. But we all know what happened. But anyway, Spider-Man 1. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and a subscribe so I know to keep making more of these. If you have any video requests, please put them down in the comments below. I will do my best to reply. Let me know what you think of the first Spider-Man movie down in the comments below as well. Let me know which one is your favorite out of the trilogy or out of all the Spider-Man films ever made. Let me know which one is your favorite down in the comments below. But anyway, thanks for watching as always, and I will see all of you in the next video. Bye! Yeah.